Imagine a world where there were no kings, no rulers, no laws. A world where survival was the only rule, kill or be killed. A world where power wasn't inherited, it was earned. But something happened. Something that changed humanity forever. Something that divided us into two eternal camps. The kings and the slaves. This is the story of how power was born. This is the story of how humanity became divided. And by the end, I'll ask you a question that might just change the way you see your entire life. So, stay with me, because this is not a fairy tale. This is the birth of power, the beginning, survival of the strongest. Let's go back to the beginning. Tens of thousands of years ago, when humans were nothing more than wild animals, roaming the earth with no rules, no borders, no mercy. There were no kings, no castles, no crowns. There was only survival. The strongest hunted. They brought down mammoths with nothing but spears and raw courage. The weakest, they perished, left to starve in the snow, their bones forgotten by time. This was nature's law, unyielding and brutal. Kill or be killed. But survival wasn't just about strength. It was about something deeper, something that would change the course of humanity forever. One day, a man no stronger than the others, did something extraordinary. He didn't just hunt, he thought. He discovered fire, a flickering flame that pushed back the darkness and kept the cold at bay. He crafted weapons, sharper, deadlier, more precise. He devised strategies, traps, ambushes, ways to outsmart the beasts that once hunted him. This man wasn't the strongest, but he was the smartest. And that made him something new. That made him a leader. The others in his tribe saw what he could do. They saw the fire that warmed their freezing hands. They saw the weapons that brought down prey they could never catch. They saw the strategies that kept them alive when the storms came. And they became dependent on him. They needed his fire, his tools, his mind. In return, they gave him something no one had ever given before: their loyalty. They followed him. They obeyed him. And in that moment, power was born. This was the first division of humanity. On one side, the rulers, those who controlled the resources, the fire, the food, the knowledge. On the other side, they ruled those who needed those resources to survive. The ones who bowed their heads and said, "Lead us." It wasn't about strength anymore. It was about control. And control. Control is the seed of all power. Fast forward thousands of years. Humans evolved. Tribes became villages. Villages grew into cities. And cities birthed kingdoms. The world was no longer a wild, untamed frontier. It was a chessboard. And the pieces were human lives. The rulers, the ones who had once controlled fire and food, now controlled entire societies. But they learned something new. They learned that power wasn't just about resources, it was about fear. Fear became their ultimate weapon. They built towering castles, stone fortresses that loomed over the land like gods, watching from the heavens. "You cannot touch us," those castles screamed. They trained warriors, armies of men clad in iron, their swords stained with the blood of anyone who dared to disobey. "Cross us, and you die," those warriors warned. And they created myths, stories whispered in the dark to keep the people in line. The gods chose us to rule, they said. We are divine. You are nothing. The rulers wrote history, but they didn't write the truth. They wrote their own glory. They carved their names into stone, pharaohs, emperors, warlords. While the names of the conquered were erased, their stories buried in the dirt. The powerful ruled with an iron fist, their thrones built on the backs of the weak. Peasants toiled in the fields, their hands blistered, their stomachs empty, while the kings feasted on roasted boar in halls lit by golden chandeliers. And if someone dared to rise, if a peasant looked up from the mud and said, "This isn't right," they were dealt with swiftly. The lucky ones were exiled, cast out into the wilderness to die. The unlucky ones were executed, their heads displayed on spikes as a warning to others. And the most dangerous ones, the ones who inspired others to question, to rebel, they were erased from history entirely, as if they never existed. Their names, their ideas, their dreams, gone, swallowed by the shadows of the past. This was the age of kingdoms, an age of blood and domination. An age where power wasn't just control, it was absolute. The rulers didn't just want obedience, they wanted worship. They wanted the people to believe that this was the natural order, that some were born to rule and others were born to serve. But then, something happened. Something the kings didn't expect. The people started asking questions. They started whispering in the shadows. Why do they live in castles while we starve? Why do they feast while we labor? Why do we bow when we outnumber them? The kings heard the whispers. They saw the glint of rebellion in the people's eyes. They knew they couldn't rule forever with swords and fear alone. The people wanted freedom. They wanted a voice. They wanted to believe they mattered. So what did the rulers do? Did they step down? Did they share their power? No. They did something far more cunning. They rebranded slavery. They created a new system, a system they called government. No more kings and peasants, they said. Now we have leaders and citizens. No more forced labor in the fields. Now we have jobs. You work for us, and we'll give you just enough to survive. No more chains around your wrists. Now we have laws, rules you must follow, or you'll be locked in a different kind of cage. And the people? They celebrated. They danced in the streets, waving flags, shouting, "We are free." They thought they had won. They thought the age of tyranny was over, but nothing had changed. The rulers had simply put on a new mask. The game remained the same, but the pieces had new names. Tributes to the king became taxes, money you hand over to the government or they take everything you own. Royal guards became police, men with weapons who enforce the system's rules, not yours. Obedience to a ruler became obedience to the system, a system that told you where to live, what to say, how to think. The rulers learned a new trick. Give the people the illusion of freedom, and they'll never rebel. Let them vote for their leaders, but make sure all the candidates serve the same system. Let them choose their jobs, but make sure every job keeps them dependent on the system to survive. Let them believe they have rights, but make sure those rights can be taken away the moment they step out of line. This was the birth of governments, a new chapter in the story of power. The rulers didn't need to stand on a throne anymore. They sat in offices, behind closed doors, pulling strings the people couldn't see. They didn't need to wield a sword. They wielded something far more dangerous, control over the people's minds. And the people? They bought the lie. They called it freedom. They called it progress. But deep down, they knew. They knew the chains were still there. They just couldn't see them anymore. Fast forward to today. The year is 2025. And the world looks nothing like it did thousands of years ago. Or does it? We think we're free. We vote in elections, choosing between candidates who all answer to the same system. We pick our jobs, deciding which cubicle we'll spend our lives in, trading our time for money that's never enough. We celebrate our rights, the right to speak, the right to protest, the right to dream. But let me ask you something. Are you really free? You're not free if you trade your time for money, but never have enough to live the life you want. You wake up at 6 a.m., sit in traffic for an hour, work 9 hours for a boss who doesn't care, and come home too tired to dream. You're not free if you live in a system that punishes rebellion and rewards obedience. Try speaking out against the system, see how fast you're silenced, canceled, or locked away. Try refusing to pay taxes. See how quickly they take your home, your savings, your life. You're not free if you pay taxes that fund wars you never approved. Wars that kill people you'll never meet, while your own community crumbles. You're not free if you're drowning in debt. Student loans, mortgages, credit cards. Chains that keep you working, keep you obedient, keep you trapped. The rulers don't need whips anymore. They have debt to keep you in line. They don't need to lock you in a dungeon. They have media to lock your mind. Endless streams of entertainment, news, ads, all designed to keep you distracted, to keep you consuming, to keep you from asking the questions that matter. They don't need to control you physically. They control your thoughts with algorithms, social media feeds that know what you'll click, what you'll buy, what you'll believe. Look around you. The average person spends 8 hours a day staring at a screen, scrolling through content that's been curated to keep them angry, afraid, or entertained. They spend 40 hours a week working a job they hate, just to pay for a life they don't have time to live. They spend their evenings watching television shows that glorify the rich, the powerful, the untouchable, while they sit on a couch, eating processed food, dreaming of a life they'll never have. This is modern slavery. It's not chains around your wrists, it's chains around your mind. It's not a king on a throne. It's a system that's everywhere, invisible, untouchable, and more powerful than any king could ever be. The rulers have perfected their game. They've made you believe you're free, while they tighten the leash with every passing day. Today, in 2025, we are more divided than ever. The divide isn't just between the strong and the weak, the rulers and the ruled. It's between the 1% and the 99%. The 1% controls everything: wealth, media, governments, technology. Not because they're better, not because they're smarter, but because they understand the system. They've cracked the code. The 1% doesn't work for money. They make money work for them. They own the companies you work for, the banks that hold your debt, the media that shapes your thoughts. They don't consume the news. They control it, deciding what you see, what you hear, what you believe. They don't live paycheck to paycheck. They live on yachts, in mansions, in a world you'll never touch. And the 99%? They're trapped. They live paycheck to paycheck, one missed payment away from losing everything. They're entertained, distracted, obedient, scrolling through social media, binge-watching shows, arguing over politics that 1% orchestrates. They fight among themselves, left versus right, rich versus poor, us versus them, while the 1% watches from above, laughing as the pawns tear each other apart. Let me paint you a picture. On one side, there's a tech billionaire who made his fortune selling your data, tracking your every move, feeding you ads that keep you buying, keep you consuming. He's sipping champagne on a private island, his wealth growing every second while he sleeps. On the other side, there's a single mother working 2 jobs, 16 hours a day, just to feed her kids. She's exhausted, her hands trembling as she counts coins to pay the rent, knowing she'll never get ahead. That's the 1% versus the 99%. That's the final division. But here's the secret. The 1% doesn't want you to know. They're not untouchable. They're not gods. They're just people. People who learned how to play the game. They understand power. They understand control. They understand that the system isn't broken. It's built this way. It's built to keep them on top and you on the bottom. It's built to keep you distracted, to keep you obedient, to keep you a slave. History repeats itself. The cycle never ends. The weak will always be ruled. The strong will always lead. From the first humans who discovered fire to the kings who built empires, from the governments that rebranded slavery to the 1% that controls the world today, the story of power has never changed. It's a game, and you're a player, whether you like it or not. But here's the difference between then and now. Today, you have a choice. You can be a slave to the system, trading your life for survival, working for a paycheck that keeps you just alive enough to work another day. You can stay distracted, scrolling through feeds, watching shows, arguing over things that don't matter, while the 1% pulls the strings. You can bow your head, obey the rules, and live the life they've designed for you. A life of quiet desperation. A life where you're nothing more than a pawn. Or you can break free. You can understand power. You can take control. You can stop working for the system and make the system work for you. You can stop consuming their lies and start creating your own truth. You can stop being a slave and become a king. This is not a game. This is your life. The cycle of power has been spinning for thousands of years, but you have the power to step off the wheel. You have the power to rewrite your story, but it starts with a choice only you can make. So, I'll leave you with this final question. Will you be a king or a slave? Think about it. Really think about it. And when you're ready to answer, drop a comment below. Tell me, are you ready to break free? Are you ready to take control? Let's build this tribe together. A tribe of kings, a tribe of rebels, a tribe that refuses to bow. We've got a lot more to uncover. This is your life. Decide now.